Okay, hi. I'm Jeff Turk. I'm a researcher from the Belgian team on the On the Move project on the reality of free movement for young EU citizens. Um, the project was funded by the European Commission. So the Belgian group was based at the KU Leuven. So this is a brief video presentation on the results of the Belgian National Report, which we produced. So this report was put into three different parts. One was just a desktop research of the trends and the situation in Belgium and in Flanders in particular. And there was also a brief examination of the legislation in Belgium. And then we did some interviews with EU citizens that came into Belgium, some Belgian citizens that are planning at this point to move to different EU countries, and also with some of the experts in Belgium. So for our main findings of the desktop research, there are some major differences between the Flanders, the Wallonian, and the Brussels capital region of Belgium. So this report concentrates on the Flemish region, which is where our research team at the KU Leuven was based. So as far as the migration and patterns and trends, we looked both at the Belgian nationals and in Belgium and the EU nationals coming into Belgium. So Belgians do actually make use of their right to move to other EU countries or to other countries in general. So in 2010, about 13.1% of the Belgian population had spent at least 3 consecutive months abroad, which, while that was still lower than the European average of 15.7%, it was still much greater than the number of other EU nationals that were living in Belgium in 2010, and that number was 2.4%. And even then, the largest group came from neighboring the Netherlands. And since then, since 2010, the Dutch have remained by far the largest group of foreign EU nationals, at least in Flanders. And this number has nearly doubled between 2010 and 2015. The other large groups of foreign nationals in Flanders, in descending order, were Morocco, Turkey, Italy, and France. Then by 2015, the largest groups after the Dutch were also in descending order: Poland, Morocco, Italy, Romania, France, and Turkey. And the numbers from Spain, Bulgaria, and Portugal were on the rise. So if we look at the profile of the youth, people in this age group coming to Flanders and leaving, so the unemployment rate in Flanders in 2014 at least was 4.5% for Belgian citizens, 8% for non-Belgian EU nationals, and 22% for non-EU nationals. This should be compared to the rates for Belgium as a whole. So for Belgian citizens in Belgium, the unemployment rate was 9.8%. For the EU nationals, it was 11.7%, which is not much higher. And for non-EU nationals, it was 20.3%, which was about twice as much as unemployment rate for Belgian and EU nationals. So the ages of the EU citizens coming to Belgium were actually significantly younger. This was a younger group than the general population in Belgium, particularly if the Dutch nationals are not counted. So the largest group of EU nationals coming into Belgium were in the 25 to 34 year old group. And this is the target group for this project. Okay, so now if we look at the legislative analysis we've done, the main directive that regulates this for the EU as a whole is Directive 2004/38 EC. And this was supposed to have been transposed into Belgium by the Belgian law of April 2007. However, Belgium received a reasoned opinion from the European Commission in 2013, which stated that Belgium had not correctly transposed certain provisions of the directive. So then another law was passed in March of 2014 that aimed at fixing the problems in the transposition in Belgium. It introduced some changes regarding the residence of EU citizens and their family members in Belgium, and a few other provisions. Also, there was some other problems in the environment in Belgium at the time. So Belgium underwent an extended period of not having a functioning government, and it also had a major state reorganization in late 2011. And then also there was a radical change in government in 2014, which brought Flemish nationalists into key positions in the government. So the Flemish government has largely consolidated since then many previous bodies that were dealing with immigration and free movement into Belgium from the EU. These bodies then came under the Agency for Social and Civic Integration, which is the Agentschap Inburgering and Integratie. Sorry, Agentschap Integratie en Inburgering. While the courses run through this agency are required for third country nationals, they are open to EU nationals and do provide useful information and many resources free of charge to EU nationals. However, since the new government, the number of expulsion orders given to EU nationals has risen dramatically since 2013. So it was, tens per year in about 2013, and it moved up to hundreds per year, and lately it's been in the thousands per year. This has led to the establishment of an EU rights clinic in Brussels and the launching of a 2015 European Commission investigation into the action of the Belgian authorities. So the outcome of that action was that the Commission says that they won't take any direct action, but they will stay in regular contact with the Belgian authorities to make sure that with a view to ensuring full and proper implementation of the directive. So if we move to the main findings of the qualitative research, we interviewed 32 free-moving EU citizens that came into Belgium. These were from Poland, Spain, Estonia, Portugal, Greece, Italy, Bulgaria, Romania, and Austria. We also interviewed 3 Flemings that have decided to move to other EU states. 2 went to France and 1, planning to go to France and 1 going to Germany. We also interviewed 4 experts from Belgium in this area. So according to our conclusions, the main drivers for people coming into Belgium from other EU countries were for work and joining with family members or partners. Very often these 2 drivers came together. So the next main driver was people just coming to Belgium to do something new, to find for a new experience. In our case, many of the people we interviewed actually stayed in Leuven because they had studied at KU Leuven. This is where we did most of our interviews. If we turn to the real and perceived barriers, the 2 largest barriers were language and registration requirements, according to our interviewees. 44% respectively for these 2 problems. And 34% of our informants said that there was a lack of information, at least in accessible languages to them. Then the next problem or barrier, according to them, was cooperation with the authorities, which was brought up by 28% of our interviewees. Surprisingly, finding work wasn't such a big problem. Only 16% said that was a problem, and this was mostly actually from the people coming from the older member states. So the people coming from Eastern Europe, only a few of them actually reported a problem in finding work. This could be because they actually didn't come to Belgium until they had work. Another 16% said making friends in Belgium was a problem, and then about 13% said the cost of living and weather, 13% respectively for those two problems. Most indeed did not feel that these barriers were actually very difficult for them. So if we look at the practices that might promote or hinder the right to free movement. I guess the most significant factor for people was in having good contacts already in the country, whether this was a partner, a family member, or colleagues. Also, local expatriate networks are extremely valuable resources for a lot of the people coming into Belgium. And again, as I mentioned, staying after studies was allowed people to actually get used to living in Belgium and were more familiar with the process and what they had to do to stay. Also, the university helped a lot in that situation, so they had the university helping to make to help them familiarize themselves with the Belgian context. Learning the language, particularly Dutch, was probably the most time-consuming of the barriers, but it wasn't necessarily such a huge problem. Another problem was having diplomas and other credentials recognized in Belgium. This was mentioned as a problem for a lot of people. Again, finding a job was not really reported as a major difficulty, but then again, given the situation that they would have to leave, the people that we interviewed already had jobs, so they actually were able to overcome that difficulty. And we don't know how much that actually caused people not to stay here. So the main recommendations coming from the people we interviewed was to actually, for people coming into Belgium, to be informed and be prepared before moving. They should also save some money and start the job search well before, and as well as learning the language as much as possible. Otherwise, following the free integration courses is a really good option for people, and these courses actually do offer resources, and they can set up contacts with other with people that are in similar situations. Also, really good idea is to stay in contact again with other expatriate groups in Belgium. More of them are in Belgium, but there are a lot of expatriates also in the Flemish region. So recommendations for the local authorities that came out of this was that it would be very helpful to have some sort of a welcome package for newcomers. This would be either online or in a printed form with basically the useful information, points of contact, and so on. This would also be best if it was in English or other languages that are common for the people that are coming in, since when they come in, they may not have mastered Dutch or French to a degree required to actually make use of that information if it's not in their language. So those are the basic outcomes of our report. So thank you for listening.